The moment the coffee cup slipped from her hands, the entire diner seemed to freeze. The dark liquid splashed across the floor, staining her faded white apron that already carried the weight of long, exhausting years. But the burn she felt wasn't from the coffee. It came from the sharp, careless laughter that echoed behind her. 3 young men sat in the corner, dressed in expensive clothes, drowning in their own arrogance. The loudest among them, a boy named Bryce, grinned with the kind of superiority that only privilege can produce. Before anyone could react, he leaned forward and spat right on Martha's uniform. The room fell dangerously silent. Forks paused midair, conversations dissolved, and even the ticking clock felt louder. This wasn't just humiliation. This was a moment that tested the dignity of a woman who had spent her life quietly serving others. A moment that would silently rewrite someone's soul. Martha wasn't just a waitress. She was resilience molded into a human heart. At 69 years old, life had already asked more of her than most could endure. She had loved deeply, lost painfully, and still chosen kindness every single morning. Her husband had been her world until cancer took him far too early, leaving her alone to raise their young son with no safety net, just shaky faith and steady determination. There were nights when she barely slept, working double shifts, skipping meals, hiding her exhaustion behind soft smiles. The diner had become more than a workplace. It was where she rebuilt herself, one table, one cup of coffee, one polite thank you at a time. Most customers never learned her story, never noticed her gentle tremble or the ache in her knees. Yet every day she tied the same worn apron and showed up, choosing grace over bitterness, humanity over hurt. Because strength isn't always loud, sometimes it serves coffee with soft hands. Bryce had never known what it felt like to want for anything. Born into wealth, powered by privilege, and wrapped in entitlement. The world was his stagehand. Everyone else was background noise. His father owned half the town. His wardrobe carried designer labels, and his ego walked 2 steps ahead of him. To Bryce, respect wasn't earned, it was demanded. Kindness wasn't strength, it was weakness. And people like Martha, they were invisible, insignificant, existing only to serve and disappear. His friends followed the same script, laughing a little too loud, recording a little too fast, fueled by the small thrill of humiliating someone who couldn't fight back. The phone cameras felt like weapons, capturing moments that fed their pride, not their conscience. They didn't see a human heart breaking in front of them, just content, clicks, and online attention waiting to happen. No one noticed the shift at first, until the air itself felt heavier. Near the entrance stood a group of men most people would instinctively avoid. Leather vests, ink-covered arms, and eyes sharpened by lives lived on the edge. They didn't need to speak to command attention. At their front was rexbroadshouldered.com, intimidating in the quietest way possible. He wasn't angry, not yet, but justice lived in the stillness of his stare. Without a word, he stepped toward Bryce, boots steady, presence loud in its silence. There were no threats, no shouting, no dramatic punch, just a single truth hanging in the air. There would be consequences today. The room held its breath as he gently placed the fallen coffee pot back on the counter and turned to Martha with unexpected softness. And in that moment, power didn't look like violence, it looked like protection, dignity, and an unspoken demand for accountability. Bryce stood frozen, pride and panic fighting in his eyes. For the first time in his life, someone hadn't looked past his behavior or bowed to his name. They had held a mirror to it. When Rex nodded toward the spilled coffee, there was no argument left in the room. Slowly, awkwardly, Bryce bent down, grabbed a rag, and wiped the sticky mess from the floor. The silence around him was heavier than any shouting could ever be. His friends didn't move, didn't laugh, didn't help. They just watched as arrogance drained from his posture, replaced by something unfamiliar weightiness. Every wipe of the cloth felt like a layer of ego peeling away. Martha tried softly to stop him, uncomfortable with the moment, but Rex shook his head gently. Accountability wasn't punishment, it was awakening. And when Bryce finally looked up, something in him had shifted. The world had just stopped feeling smaller than himself. A week passed, and life in the diner returned to its usual rhythm, but something had quietly changed. Martha never spoke about that humiliating day, yet the weight of it had shifted into something softer, something unseen but deeply felt. And then, tucked gently into her locker, she found a note. No signature, no explanation, just a few sincere words written in shaky honesty. Bryce didn't ask for attention, or forgiveness, or praise. He simply said, "Thank you," for seeing humanity in someone who didn't deserve it that day. He told her he had started volunteering at a local community kitchen, discovering what real work felt like for the first time. Attached was a receipt, an anonymous but huge donation to a shelter made in her name. No cameras, no applause, just change. Because redemption, when real, doesn't announce itself, it whispers, it acts, and it heals quietly.